Hey, how's it going, guys? So today we're going to talk about how to remove snow from your car without scratching it up and undoing all the hard work you put into polishing it and coating it and all that fun stuff. So first off, I highly recommend, and as you'll see in the clips here, getting one of these doohickeys. I think they call it a snow blade or something like that, but I got this at Walmart when it was on sale pretty cheap, and you'll notice there's space sort of in between there, and you can sort of put your microfiber towel down inside there and just sort of droop it over, either hook it in the other side or just sort of let it hang around, as you'll see in the clips here. That's how I use it, and seems to be a pretty good method. Now, I'll sort of go through these clips. So one thing you'll notice is that on the windshield, I'm always brushing up and sort of away. I'm not brushing the snow down into the windshield wipers and not down into any of the vents that might be on the bottom of the windshield there. That's fairly important to keep in mind because you don't want to force snow down into those areas. And you'll notice I do the similar type of thing on the headlights when I get to them. But now, one of the important things to remember is that the order in which you do this, because if your car isn't perfectly clean when you go to wipe snow off it, if you've got a bunch of crud from the road, you don't want to be grinding that into your paint. And of course, all the same rules for washing your car apply as to cleaning your car off. You want to start from the top and work your way down, and you don't want to be putting that microfiber in contact with the dirtiest portions of your car and grinding that dirt into your paint. So you'll sort of notice that as I go across and do a sweep, I'm actually not putting very much pressure. It's, you know, pretty much no pressure at all downward. I just sort of set the snow blade into the snow, and no downward pressure. I just sort of sweep it off. And you know, if you've got a good good coating or sealant on your car, the snow should just sort of wipe off. And if there happens to be a frozen or ice layer, don't worry about that. It'll melt off as the car warms up. Yeah, you don't want to get in there digging and scraping and grinding on stuff, because you're gonna undo all your hard work. So, like I said, you want to do from the top down. Sort of get your side windows. The windows aren't that critical to use the microfiber towel on, because it's really hard to scratch glass. If you want to just use the snow blade on that portion, you could. But you know, especially if your windows are dirty at all, I'd actually recommend just using the snow blade and then wrapping the microfiber around to get you the painted areas of your vehicle. And you'll notice on the back of the car too that I, you know, again, I go from the back windshield and sort of sweep the snow down and off, and you know, no pressure. I'm not digging in. I'm just sort of letting the whole thing glide down across there. Now, one thing I will draw your attention to, especially on these W204 chassis Mercedes, and I don't know about the newer ones, or I expect it's the same with the 203 chassis. This area right down in here, you want to make sure that you clean that out. That is your intake vent for the air in the car, and you don't want an excessive amount of snow getting pulled in there. And you want to be really conscious of this if you're only going for a short drive where the car isn't going to get nice and hot for a while. Now, a little tiny bit of snow sort of getting in there, especially because some's going to get in, you know, you're going to end up pushing it down in there when you try to clean it out. A little bit getting down in there isn't a big deal, but the major problem is if you get a lot in there and you don't get the car warm enough that it all sort of melts and goes out through the drainage holes, what can end up happening on a short trip is it'll refreeze to the the vent flaps that are in there. There's a little mechanism that sort of comes down over and closes off the vents when the car is turned off. That's sort of when it goes to its sleep thing, 10 or 20 minutes after you shut the vehicle off. Those gaskets that are in there can actually freeze. You won't have heat next time you go to drive your car, especially if you have an extended period of cold. That actually happened to me last year, and we had a nice warm day. I'd washed the car, and I didn't take it for a long drive. I just let it sort of warm up for 2 or 3 minutes while I was drying the car off, and then I put it back and left it 2 or 3 days, and came back out to start it when we had this stretch of minus 20 whatever weather, and I had no heat for my 40-minute drive over to the next town, and it took several times of actually cycling the car, getting it hot, and then letting it sit, just the engine heat sort of warming things up. Eventually it got to the point where that vent would open. So that's one area that you want to make sure that you clear off, and I know it's a problem with the ML series there, Mercedes. They always say the vents that are up on the hood, you want to clean those off before you even start the vehicle, because if that snow gets sucked in and doesn't stay melted enough to drain out, then you're going to have freeze up issues. And it's sort of an odd problem to have with these vehicles, considering they test them at the Arctic Circle and all this other stuff. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but yeah. So follow those couple simple steps, and if that towel does get dirty, you can always swap it out for another one, wash it, whatever. But the main thing is, if your car is coated in salt and dirt, don't go grinding and rubbing. Just a nice light action, work from the top down to the bottom. And you can keep that microfiber towel in your car in a little plastic baggie or whatever in your trunk. And that way when you're out somewhere, if you need to, you just throw it on your ice blade and go to town, and then you can wash it or whatever when you get home. So hope that helps you guys out, and we'll catch you next time around.